Okay, cool. So I'm Maddie.
I'm Olivia.
I'm Perry.
And we are going to do our service learning project presentation. So we did our service learning project with Habitat for Humanity Restore, which is the kind of like home goods store in comparison to the Habitat for Humanity construction. And so basically their mission is seeking to put God's love into action, brings people together to build homes, communities, and hope. And Perry is going to talk a little bit more about the history.
So for the history and the mission of the actual Restore, it's mostly just to provide gently used furniture, and then they have other home improvement items like sinks and cabinets, and then they just have a variety of things, and they also have rugs that come in from like actual designer places that just don't get sold right away, and they stay in the back of the house, so they bring them there and then sell them at a fraction of the retail price. And so this helps to bring people together in the community, and it helps to build a better community, not just from like the workers, but also the people that come in. You could meet a lot of different people there, and it just brings all different types of people in there, because some of them are like less fortunate people who can't necessarily afford these items at a full price, but also there was a lot of people who came in that could afford it, but they just wanted to use used items. So the idea of the actual Habitat for Humanity started in 1976 in Americus, Georgia by Millard and Linda Fuller. And then like the Restore, the first one started in 1991 in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Their concept basically focused on those in need of adequate shelter. So it was kind of helping them start their own homes, and it ties in with the actual Habitat for Humanity, which builds the homes. So then this kind of just furnishes them and makes it feel more at home for their families.
The Habitat for Humanity in general and the Restore addresses multiple social issues, but the most common is the homelessness and then the housing. And the Restore is a place where individuals who do not have as much money or aren't as fortunate have the opportunity to come in and buy multiple items, like Perry mentioned, for their home in order to furnish it, and then that allows for them to provide for their family. And then Maddie is going to discuss the rest of the social issues.
Yeah, so basically at the Restore, outcasts of the community that are not offered fair wages or do not meet qualifications for jobs and fall under the category of homelessness or suffer from poor living conditions are granted the opportunity with the ability to obtain a home through service hours of volunteering. So this was actually something that Perry and I inquired about on one of our volunteering times, because there were quite the regulars that we saw there who were consistently there and volunteering in the back, which was not an area that we were normally asked to do work in. And a lot of these people, there was a lot of children there, and we were just curious as to why they were chosen for, or what, if there was some purpose of what they were doing, just because of how consistently they were there and how hard they were working. And so out of curiosity, we spoke with one of the employees about all of the volunteers that came to the Restore on a regular basis. And we found out that these are individuals or families that are working towards 400 service hours with Restore to complete buyback for getting a house through the construction department of Habitat for Humanity. So it's kind of cool in the aspect that although they are kind of two different organizations in the sense that, you know, one is for construction and the other is for like gently used home furnishing items and whatever, it's cool that they come together on this common ground and provide, you know, a solution to this social issue of homelessness and the issue of unfair wages, and they're allowing people who are less fortunate and from different socioeconomic statuses to have the ability to own something of their own, and they're giving it to them in such a cool way that allows them to not have to, you know, I mean, they can afford it in a lot easier way than they could just in the long term. So
well, and like they can accept the homes and not feel like they're just being given them, like they're still working at them. It's just an easier and quicker way to earn the money for a home. So I mean, it's just a better way of doing this, because then the kids can be involved also in order to get all the hours done. So then maybe like the parents could be working also at the same time. So
yeah, it was kind of cool how like they are just very inclusive of all different kinds of family types, and so they allow these people. It's not always based primarily on the adults. Like they expect that the kids come there too, which I think is something cool. So it teaches these kids from a young age that their socioeconomic status is not something to be ashamed of, because they have opportunities like this to where they are going to be able to work hard to get things, of importance, and of things that middle class people or upper class people would have that they might not have. So yeah.
The nature of the project, or like purpose of it, was for the students to complete 15 hours with any group or company that was approved to that, and the company where they portrayed servant leadership tasks and skills. And then the students completed the hours in order to better understand the meaning of servant leadership and how it is related to any company and how any service is related to servant leadership, and then to see how important it is to help others, and then the different examples of servant leadership. And then the contribution, I kind of related it more of just volunteers in general, not necessarily just the students that volunteer there. That when volunteers come into the restore, it gives the employees the opportunity to focus on their customers. So they're able to interact personally with the customers, or they have the time to stock their shelves and then update their inventory. And then by updating the inventory, it is beneficial to the customers themselves because they get the newer products. And then if products have been ruined, they normally get rid of them. And then by updating that and giving this opportunity to the customers, they will, like mentioned before, be able to provide for their family in the way that they need to.
Okay, so for the analysis and assessment, so going off of what we originally had planned to the objectives that we wanted to achieve. So initially we had objectives in place that related a lot towards what we would be doing in our future professions as healthcare workers. So in an area that we delved into with our volunteering was like the emotional aspect. It was a major topic that we felt would be most prevalent in our daily volunteering with the organization. So through this, we established an objective of wanting to demonstrate an understanding of interacting and showing compassion with families that differ from socioeconomic classes than we associate ourselves with. So we were able to cope with different beliefs and perspectives in our own. There was just such a vast variety of people that came in, and like Perry said, they weren't always lower class people. There were sometimes upper class people that just wanted to kind of use things, and it's kind of like a goodwill. We were also able
to. The money they spend on things also go towards the company. The money that they spend on things also goes towards the company. So sometimes, like, the upper class people just want to help out with making this possible. So
yeah, that's also another like a thought, and that's like a good thing to think that there are still people out there that want to support this organization and what they do. So we were also able to understand how others have different cultural and moral values than us. So we saw quite a diverse culture that came in, like just so many people from different cultures. And it was so cool because there were coworkers that were able to communicate with people from like different like ethnic backgrounds. And it was just so cool to see. It really just felt like we were all like as one. And I thought that was just really cool. So in turn, we communicated effectively with them in a way that did not seem standoffish, which was something that we wanted to ensure that because we were in there as volunteers and we were kind of in a foreign environment, we didn't want to seem like we were just there to get our volunteer hours done. We really wanted to show the people that we cared about them and we wanted to help them. So continuing on, another objective that we had in place was to open our eyes to things that we had never experienced before, such as poverty and depression, and which will be prevalent in our work. So we were able to reflect on how this correlates with will affect our work when patients come in during their times of need. So it was interesting to talk with the customers and see what different stages of their lives they were in. A lot of people, they were doing renovations. Some people had some drastic issues that really changed the course of, their life and what they were doing. So it was kind of interesting just to see the different reasons people would come in and the different things that they would need. So in turn, this has increased our compassion for others when they are going through some of their worst times. So it was interesting, like I said, to communicate with those people and see the reasons that they were in there and what they were trying to, get accomplished. So another objective was we wanted to identify ways people cope with certain circumstances and realize what responses work best in getting them to open up and trust us. So this allowed us to understand how our clients will feel when they express concerns about feeling like a bother and show unwillingness to open up. So there's just different types of people who may not feel as open and wanting to share, like especially with us. And we kind of found that in the restore that some people were really open about what they were doing and other people kind of just wanted to like get in and get out, which was perfectly fine. But it allowed us to identify like how we go about like handling those different types of personalities. So in turn, we've learned strategies to help individuals open up and share their beliefs. And then this experience has taught us how to educate and then celebrate good fortunes with those around us. So this has like this experience with volunteering has allowed us to like talk with the people who are in there for, things, big depressive episodes in their lives, like things that have happened, like natural disasters and floods, and like having to renovate things that they don't necessarily have like the means of like monetary value of doing, and we can turn that around into good fortunes and like look at the positives with them and help make their experience more enjoyable, which is something we'll be doing in our profession someday. And now we're going to move on and talk about how this applies to the Mercy core value.
So first is reverence, and that is defined as a profound spirit of awe and respect for all creation. It's shaping relationships to self, to one another, and to God, as well as acknowledge that we hold and trust all that has been given to us. So basically, this organization is all based around faith, and that's something that the humanity, Habitat for Humanity, like really prides themselves on, is how they're all about faith and about God and about serving Him, basically. So it was refreshing to see like such a place like this, because it's not very common anymore. A lot of places leave out like faith in God. Like it's just not very common to really see that anywhere. So like they're very open about it, which is really unique and very cool. And they hold us accountable for pointing our focus back towards God and His creation of us. Basically, we're all the same. We're all children of God, and so being able to be around people who feel the same way and are all about like helping and serving others is really cool. And it kind of has humbled us and then allowed us to see how similar we are to one another. So like when you're in there, it's really hard to like not see everybody like shopping in there and just like feel for them. Like it really gets you to like kind of stop and think about other people's situations and like kind of what they're going through. And so it's just a really cool like organization and how like they serve others, and like they're literally dedicated like to just helping people that can't really help themselves as much.
The next core value is integrity, which is being honest and then just having strong moral principles. And basically, it's just believing in yourself. And we're volunteering at the restore. You could tell that they all had the strong morals and they stuck to what they believed in when helping their customers. And then for servant leadership, I believe that all servant leaders and just anyone in general need to have high integrity. And everyone should be honest with themselves, but especially servant leaders, because they have to stick to what they believe in while they are serving and helping those around them. And then it's also a key component of that affects the effectiveness of servant leaders. And I think you could tell that the restore is very effective, and they have a way of how they run their store, and they wanted the volunteers to know exactly how they did that. And then the next core value is excellence, and that is just the quality of being outstanding and constantly trying to exceed the standards when you have a goal. In the Habitat for Humanity restore, it set a goal and they tried their best to exceed that goal. And then servant leaders, they have to be willing to try their best in exceed the standards when they are helping and serving others. And then everyone should try to do their best and be excellent. And then I have that servant leadership is a willingness to serve others. And in order to be willing to serve them, you have to try their best and portray excellence when serving them.
Okay, so the next core value is knowledge, which is defined as the ability to instill in our college community a thirst to continual study, observe, and investigate the world for facts and ideas that can improve the health and well-being of humankind, as well as create a love for learning. So I definitely think that it's essential for servant leaders to have a thirst for continual knowledge, even in the aspect of like just how they can improve themselves as a servant leader when it comes to a group setting. You should always want to have a thirst to understand what will make a group environment better. So this experience created a continual thirst to learn more about different socioeconomic classes and the needs that they have that aren't being met. So that's something that Habitat for Humanity as a whole, with both of the organizations of the construction and the restore, is striving to do, is to put a halt to these social injustices and the issues that go along with that. So we want to continue to observe this hardworking community and study what ways help them become successful and apply that to our work with them to allow them to flourish. So kind of just working alongside of them, it really just helped them to achieve their goals, which is something that they're kind of being inhibited in doing, and the social issues that they face, like fair wages and homelessness in general, and all that comes along with that. So the next one is compassion, and that's defined as feeling with others, being one with others in their sorrows and joy, rooted in the sense of solidarity and members of the human community. So we were able to empathize with this community on a different level. So the ability to work alongside with these individuals and working for them really allowed us to feel as one, and we found compassion for them that stayed with us throughout the duration of the project. And this definitely will be something that impacts us as we look at our career as healthcare professionals. It was really just a different experience to be able to empathize with them. And like I was saying before, like when they would express to us like what was going on in their life around that time that they were in the restore, it just really opened our eyes, and we were allowed to kind of just really ground ourselves in that. So possible future directions. So involving ourselves with their program is something that we would want to do if we were able to have all of the resources and time with this organization as possible. We would want to work with the individuals and families that are working towards 400 service hours with Restore to complete buyback for getting a house through the construction department of Habitat for Humanity, as we had mentioned before. This would be such a humbling process to work alongside these individuals who come from such different socioeconomic statuses than us. We were able to witness some of these participants at work through our duration in the organization, and like I had mentioned before, we inquired about their dedication and if there was a reason as to why they were so consistently there and volunteering and what their purpose was for the company. Seeing all of the hardworking families who were really putting in hours of manual labor each time we visited was so eye-opening and made us realize that not everyone has it as good as us. And I would definitely advise future students who choose this organization for their service learning project to really take the time to get to know volunteers that put so much time and effort into their work, and utilize Greenleaf's principle of listening in silence to humble yourself to see how dedicated these people are to achieving their goals. So like I was mentioning, like being able to start with a family and ideally follow them from the beginning processes of initiating their 400 volunteer hours to being a part of the construction team to build their house and be alongside of them through all of that and finalizing their home would be such an amazing experience. And we were actually able to talk to one of the people who was employed there who had actually followed a family throughout the process and actually got to go and see them on their closing day. And that was just something that kind of got me excited for him because that would be such a neat experience. So moving on to our synopsis, Perry will take it off.
I personally thought our project went pretty well. It was something like when we first walked in there, I didn't necessarily know how it was going to go. Since it was going to be a store, I didn't know if we were going to have that much time to interact with some people and everything, but it actually went pretty well. And we got to know not only some of the customers, but we got to know like a few of the workers, like really well and like more on a personal level. And we end up like still talking to them even though we're done with our volunteer hours. We still kind of talk to them, and like they ask us like how school's going and stuff like that. So they didn't make it like all about them. Like we really got to know each other, and it was just about all of us. Like it was about getting to know each other. It was really enjoyable to like definitely see all the different types of people that come in there, and like also the types of people that work in there. I mean, a lot of the people like you wouldn't even necessarily expect them to work in there, but it's just really cool to see all different types of people in there. Some of the activities that we participated in while we were there was like stocking the shelves. We cleaned up the aisles. We got rugs like out of the back, and then we would come and like bring them up to the front, and we would tag them and we'd hang them up for display. And then we got to communicate with a lot of the customers, and like a lot of them would ask us questions and stuff. And so we try to like direct them in the way. I mean, we were there for so long, like stocking the shelves and everything, that we knew kind of where stuff was. But a lot of times we just had to direct them to like somebody that actually worked there. So it was just really cool to see the different types of people in there, and then kind of like learn about like the purpose of the organization.
Yeah. So kind of going off of that, our ability to communicate with the customers and ask questions pertaining to the organization's issues, itself grew throughout the duration of the project. So basically we just felt like more comfortable in asking questions about the organization's purpose, like when we inquired about the service hours for buyback, and we felt more comfortable talking with customers, and even they felt confident in us. Like there was a time like, well, they were just like, if you guys want, just like go out on the floor and talk to these customers, like, because that's kind of all these people really want in this time.
They're like, so go out and make sales, like,
yeah.
sell the rugs.
Like it was cool how confident that they felt in us and our abilities, which was really humbling. So we were able to identify the different variations of socioeconomic statuses that entered the Restore and could inquire about what they were looking for, which was interesting to see not only all the different resources Restore offered, because there would be things like, I think some guy came in and asked like for screws for like a light switch holder. I'm like, and they knew exactly where it was. I was like, who would ever know to like just go in there and you can find that. But it was also cool to see like the differences in what people were looking for specifically, not only like what Restore offered. It was an enjoyable and eye-opening experience to get to interact with all the different kinds of people and the different classes. It was not something that I've ever had experience with before, so I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely eye-opening to see the different customers come in. And then really just to the first day, I didn't go with you guys because it never really worked like with my schedule. But I had gone with another girl in class that I had known outside of class. And so that first day, they kind of just, after their meeting every morning, they asked like what we were there for, and then they pointed us to an aisle where they wanted us to kind of work in. And it was really interesting for not only just the workers, but the other volunteers to like come up, and like they always were asking like how your day was and if you needed any help with anything. And I know the second or third time there was a couple more volunteers and it was busier than what it was the first time. And so they were really concerned about getting everything restocked. And then they kind of walked us through the store and were like, if you need ever to like restock anything, it might be here. And then the last day I had the opportunity, we were going through the lighting, and we would bring the ones that were broken or like missing pieces to the back. And there was the guy who always fixes the lights. He spent a majority of his time with us talking about like what he does for the Restore, which was really interesting. And then, so what I did, I basically just organized and restocked the shelves and then cleaned the store. But I thought it was interesting to have some interaction with the customers and then have the interaction with the workers as well.
So next is a picture of me, Perry, and Bailey, which is someone who we met through, who is also volunteering through this class, but she has a different professor. So it was cool to be able to interact with her and kind of share that experience with her and see what her take on it was. And she was there quite often when we volunteered. So next is a picture of the cabinet aisle, and then the back wall where there is like pieces of carpet. So often we were asked to organize materials and restock different items like we've talked about. But most often, like we did a lot of restocking the cabinets, at least Perry and I did. That was something that was quite popular on the weekends when we came. So it was it was kind of frustrating sometimes because we would just restock it and then someone would buy like a whole section of it. So it was just a continuous process. And that really tested our strength because that was not something I was expecting to having to do. And these guys are all like big and buff and they're trusting us to help them, which was funny.
Yeah, I normally volunteered on Mondays because it was just what worked best with my schedule. And so that we definitely didn't have as much interaction with the customers. It was more with the workers and definitely just restocking the shelves. And you could kind of tell that the workers are truly like grateful for us and they want you to help. Because there's a couple times where they would be like, "Can you go and like help me with this?" So I thought that was interesting that they actually like they tried to include us and help allow us to help on their jobs.
One spot that we, like Maddie and I spent our like most of our time in was in the carpets. Like we did a lot of asked us to sit over there and like kind of coax them over because you know when they see two girls in like a hardware type of store and we're wearing purple t-shirts and stuff, like it kind of draws people's attention. So like people would always kind of like go over there and we would like be talking and stuff. So it was just kind of a friendly environment that made them feel welcome. And this is where we got to really spend a lot of time with some of the other workers in there and really get to know them because we had quite a bit of downtime where we were helping each other out and stuff. And like that's when we got really close with people because we would just kind of like mess around and stuff a little bit of it and kind of just joke around with each other.
Yeah.
So, like, that was fun. That
You also
like it was just a like school activity, like a requirement. Like we actually enjoyed it and like getting to talk to them and stuff.
you don't realize like how often they do sell rugs. They sell rugs so much more frequently than I thought that they would, and it needs constant restocking, which is honestly quite often where we did spend most of our time. And it was just fun because like just restocking in general, it was just a fun environment with all of the employees because there are quite a few employees that sit back there just because of how frequently the rugs are bought. And honestly, those rugs are huge. Like I can't remember the actual dimensions of them. I think they're like, oh, what were they like? Were they 5x10? No, there's like, I can't remember, but they were huge. Like, and so we would have to get up on that big ladder. Well, we didn't. They would always tell us we should, but I was too afraid. I'm too clumsy. But it was always fun trying to help each other get those up.
Yeah, there was a time where one of the workers was like, "Can you grab this ladder and like grab something off the top shelf to restock it?" And the two of us just kind of looked at each other like, sure, we can. It might take us a little bit because we were scared. And then they just like watched us and then they laughed at us because they thought it was funny that we were scared to get up on a ladder.
Well, it's cool to see how like patient they are. Like they're willing to like help teach you and like help you learn with things. Like they're not like, I mean, a lot of men are super impatient and they're like, okay, you should just know how to do this. Like, let me just do it myself. But a lot of them are so patient. Like even with the cabinets and stuff, they're like, oh, like let me go get you gloves. And like he'd be like, okay, wait, one of you take this side. So like they were all really like willing to help you learn. And like they would ask us stuff about like our nursing classes and everything. So they were open to like learning things from us and like open to like teaching or like interact in that way.
Yeah. So last, I just have a funny picture of Perry. So as we got further into our volunteer hours, obviously we've talked about how we felt more comfortable around the workers and we had a lot of downtime during some of the parts of the day. So one day after organizing and moving the cabinets, this was the final day that we were here, we noticed how big this one was and Perry got into it and we just kind of thought that was a funny picture to share. So yeah, that just kind of goes like the overall tone of how our volunteering went. I know for Perry and I personally, it was a really fun and enjoyable experience where we got to just make a bunch of new friends, really just get to meet some new people, and it was really cool to. I just think it was a really cool opportunity to experience something that I've never personally done before. I've never really had the opportunity to volunteer as much as I would like. So being able to volunteer consistently, it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So
that's it. Basically, we have our sources at the end. So yeah, overall, I think this was a really enjoyable experience. I'm very grateful that we had this opportunity. Does anyone else have anything to add before we end it?
Mm-mm.
No, I just think it was a good experience, and I'm grateful that we got kind of like pushed into this because it's not really something that I would just like go do like during my schedule. Just be like, oh, I'm just gonna go volunteer. So it's nice to like kind of have it as a requirement, and then it really opens your eyes up to it. And I think it's an enjoyable thing. And like when I have downtime, like I think this is something that I would go do again.
Yeah, honestly, I thought about that too, and that's not something I think I would ever have thought before this experience. Like I thought about like possibly being able to go back and volunteer again, and that's not something I would have thought of by the end of this experience. And it's kind of cool and humbling to be having those thoughts.
I thought it was definitely interesting. So I mean, I would definitely encourage other students that take it later in time to volunteer at the Restore, because you get to see so many things that you normally wouldn't see on a normal basis.
And I think something else too, like it was kind of hard with like our schedule to get it to all like work and everything, but I think it definitely makes you like really set aside time to do something other than just studying. And it's nice that like even though it's an online class, it's interactive, because for most classes you kind of just sit in a lecture and then you get tested and that's it. But when you get to go out and like do something hands-on, like that's really exciting, because I love to do hands-on things, and that's kind of what you do with nursing. So being able to like actually interact with your classmates and stuff is really cool. So
yeah, something else that I wanted to add was I thought it was like awesome how they get so many volunteers at the Restore. Like honestly, it wasn't even just our program. Like the days that Perry and I were there were so many of all of our volunteers from Mercy there, but there was also so many just random volunteers who were just doing it. And I think it's so cool that the workers still like took the time to get to know us and like build a relationship with us, even though they see so many different volunteers. And I really think that contributed to having our experience be so enjoyable, because of the fact that they took the time to get to know us and didn't just treat us like, oh, it's another volunteer who can do all our work. It's like they were nice enough to, you know, teach us how to do things and like not expect like us to be able to do them perfectly. So like if we couldn't lift things up or something, they would be like, no, it's fine, like don't hurt yourselves, like we'll do it, you know, like just very encouraging in that aspect. That was, I think that led to the overall enjoyment of the project.
Yeah, that definitely helped and like would encourage me to go back, just to see like how welcoming they are.
Yep. So yeah, so that was our service learning project. Yay, we're done. Okay. Stop.